What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel tonight. The past few weeks, we've had a lot of modern athlete coaches on the channel who are coaches specifically. So I'm excited about this conversation tonight because we do have one of our newer modern athlete coaches, but he's also been an athlete on our training teams for multiple years now. And so I'm really excited for him to get on here tonight and discuss how training in his career or how training has directly impacted his career. So without me giving too much more about him, I'm going to turn it over to Brandon to describe a little bit about himself.
Yeah, so I've been in the fire service I just hit 10 years 2 months ago. I've been in EMS for like 14, 15-ish years. So before that, I worked here in Arizona. We have private ambulances. We're contracted with fire departments, so we would respond with them for transports. So I did that for 4 years prior to getting hired here. Currently a captain paramedic on a squad. So we're a dual company, meaning I have two trucks I'm responsible for, an engine or a pumper, some fire departments in the East Coast call it, and then a squad is our second truck. Not to get too much into that because I could talk about kind of what we do on those trucks. But I've been on that spot for probably 6 to 8 months now. I've been a captain for a year. I did a year as an engineer. We call them engineers in Arizona. So the guy that drives the truck and pumps the panels and flows all the water, does all the math in their head. And then obviously a firefighter before that. I've been, it's one of the best jobs ever. The sleep deprivation can get to you. That's kind of the current thing. But I had a busy truck. We run a lot of calls. It's fun. My crew's young. They love to train. Um, they get after it with me in gear. We train a lot in turnouts. Just get acclimated to the job, especially in the Arizona summers. But yeah, I have a beautiful wife, Bree. We've been married for, oh man, I'm calling myself on the spot. Um, 12 years. I was trying to think.
There you go.
Two daughters, a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. So they keep me very busy. That's kind of why I've built a garage gym here. It makes it a lot easier for me to train and my wife to get after it and train in here. I'm born and raised here. I'm a local. I'm a native to Arizona. Um, that's pretty much it. I kind of came from strength sports like everybody else. I played high school football. I was an offensive guard. I wasn't fast enough to really get recruited to any of the big colleges. I got a few junior college offers, but I actually pursued. We're kind of going in the depths of it, but I pursued to be a cop initially. I'm going to be a police officer. My dad kind of steered me away from that because he was a cop for a short time in Anaheim. Said it was kind of, it's rough. And especially with today's climate, I'm kind of glad I didn't pursue that path. But went to fire service, EMT, and, kind of back to the football world of it. Did some powerlifting for a little bit after I got hired off probation. So we do a year after the academy where you're on probation. So you rotate in your training. So once I was clear with that, I was able to kind of pursue powerlifting for, I want to say like 3 years, until I got way too big and heavy for my job and I couldn't perform like I should in gear. And then I did do strongman occasionally because I like the conditioning and strength aspect. But yeah, I've been with Modern Athlete for, man, I want
I
to say
think
almost 3 years.
three,
I
yeah,
don't know.
I was thinking
It's been
that
a
earlier. I
while.
think it's been around three because you've been working with us specifically now for a little under
Yeah,
a year, but then yeah, you've been on the training teams for it has to have been three or so now at this point.
yeah, I started with some other tactical programs, some bigger companies, big companies too. And then I don't even remember how I fell into the lap of Modern Athlete, but I used to be a program hopper like probably most people, but this is the longest I've stayed on something and it's done the best for me for my career and lifestyle really. And it's the best of both worlds. We're lifting heavy, but we're conditioning ourselves hypertrophy a little bit. So making sure we look good, feel good, and perform good really.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we've talked about it before. Me and some of the other coaches have talked about programming hopping. So, like, real quick, could you explain how finding a program that fit your needs and then sticking with that, what you saw that actually do for your progress? I know you've always been strong, and anyone who's
Mhm.
followed us for a while has seen the ridiculous numbers that you put up because you're constantly in our stories or on the post. But how did sticking with one program truly, progress?
I think just the continuity of everything, right? Like when you program hop, you don't see the progress because, in the training world, it takes a long time to build progress, right? Add 5 pounds, 2.5 pounds to your total, shave off your mile time. So when you're program hopping, I kind of realized that I'm not benefiting from it, right? Like, yeah, it's something new and exciting, different programs, different riders, different coaches, but I never benefited and saw that progress like I do with modern athlete because of being consistently on Warfighter. I've been able to track my progress and seeing that kind of that growth. And like for me, it's not like, yeah, we all love lifting heavy, maxing out, but my goal was to lose body weight. I'm still on that path, but to maintain my strength, right? I understand I'll lose some numbers in my maxes, but what I lose there, I'm getting better at health wise, right, and fitness wise.
Right. Like I
So
think
I
you
think,
said the other day that you hit a 585 squat, but it was at your
yeah,
lowest body weight ever, to where the ratio
yeah,
is probably better, correct?
yeah. So like if powerlifting world, I think they use Wilks or dots. So obviously, the lighter you are, the heavier you are, the better that ratio is your body weight. But yeah, I mean, I don't even remember I think my all time squat I weighed, I think my last competition, I was like 290, 95. I cut down to weigh in the 275s in that week. I think 620 was my heaviest squat. So to only be, you know, not that much weight away from that, but at 60 pounds lighter, I kind of walk around 235 right now. I don't really have a body weight goal per se. Like I don't care about the scale. It's more like how I look and feel. But to be at this weight and still almost hit those numbers I was hitting when I was 60 pounds heavier is what makes me excited. And that's all because I've stayed on this program, right? Like I think the biggest thing with program hopping is you kind of get bored and you're like, oh, what's the latest and greatest, right? You're on social media, Instagram, TikTok, and you're seeing like the newest thing and craze. Or your buddies, like, I have a group of friends, we have a chat on Instagram and we're always sharing ideas. And we started all meeting from one program we all did together and now whatever. But with modern athlete, like the cycles are changing, right? We do 12-week cycles. So you're always having that updated and that excitement change. Like this is week one, we're finishing and we're doing the wave progression 753, 753. And it's kicking my butt. Like I'm thinking of these numbers I should be lifting and like I'd have to drop the weight because I'm not used to the volume. And it's awesome. That's why I've stuck with it for the time that I have because the cycles are changing, the goals change, but we're still seeing that progress.
Yeah, absolutely. And you go back to, we talk about you hitting 585 at a lower body weight compared to the 620 at 65 pounds heavier. I'm sure what you're able to do aerobically now is
Oh
way
yeah.
different than what you could have done there, just
Yeah.
adding 35 pounds to a squat. So especially we look at, your job specifically as a firefighter, the benefits that provides to your job as
Mhm.
opposed to just pulling 35 more pounds or squatting 35 more pounds.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you'll hear it time and time again when like we're talking to guys or girls that are interested in pursuing this career is it's legs and lungs, right? Like if you don't have good legs or good lungs, you're gonna struggle in the job. And like your first step to becoming a firefighter, at least here, is getting your CPAT, which is your candidate physical ability test. And it's front loaded legs. Like they kill you on the Stairmaster and smoke your legs out. And obviously your conditioning. And so that's what we tell people doing the aerobic and anaerobic conditioning that we do here on Warfighter. Like, I feel like I'm unstoppable in gear. Like, it's funny. Like, I've been on for 10 years. I'm only 35, but we're getting new guys on my truck or new guys at the station that are 18, 19 years old. And to be able to put them through the ringer and like make them quit. And like, I'm like, they look at me like, how's this old guy, doing what he does? And it's because of the program that we do. And I could never, I don't even know what my mile time was like, before this. We've been doing a lot of running mid distance, like 5 miles. I would never run 5 miles. Like I would probably run 800 meters and walk the rest. So it's cool to be able to run 5 miles in under 45 minutes. Like it's not impressive to marathon runners and these guys that are fast, but to me, that's at 235 pounds, like to be able to run 5 miles continuously, like, and then it just makes your heart health for the job, right? Because kind of going off on a tangent, but cardiac health is huge in the fire service. Guys die of heart attacks. We have crap diets at the stations and guys that don't work out. And so being able to do the conditioning that we do, the zone two stuff, like that's giving me longevity in my job and life. So it just
Yeah,
feels good to put gear on, throw an air pack on, and outwork some of the younger guys and do the hardest shit we do. Sorry if I'm cuss, but the hardest things we do,
the yeah, it's
we'll
interesting you
think
said
of,
that. Looking back, I mean, it's been years ago, but when I was in grad school, I was a part of a study that was showing elevated chronic cortisol levels in firefighters, leading to heart attacks. And I'm sure, obviously, you're very much aware of that. But yeah, interesting that you say that because I know we talked somewhat recently, between Warfighter Elite and just Modern Athlete in general, that I completely forgot about being a part of that study until you just said that right now.
Yeah. Yeah. For me too, it comes personal because both my parents died of like in the long run, it was heart disease, right? My dad was 49 years old. That was a big proponent of why I've stuck with this too, because like when I was just powerlifting, I wasn't doing any conditioning, and it was cool to be strong and lift a lot of weight and be the strongest guy, at the station. But in the long run, my dad was only 49 when he died of a heart attack. So it's like, once I had kids, I'm like, that's 14 years from now. Like, it's wild to think of that. Like 14 years from now, they wouldn't even be, in their 20s. So like, it's just crazy. So that's the big motivating factor. And then my mom was a couple of years ago, then ended up being heart disease too. And so like, that's the huge proponent besides my job, obviously, but it's just being around for my family. And I think Warfighter makes you a balanced, person in and out of the job too. So, and the sleep deprivation and like that applies to probably the cortisol levels, like you were saying, and just making sure I have a healthy heart. Whatever I can control, I'm going to try to control it. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so we've kind of referenced it a little bit, or we've referenced a decent amount so far. As far like before Modern Athlete, there was really no aerobic work. Powerlifting obviously just pulled a bunch of weight. You've dropped a fair amount of weight on this program in the time that you've been with us, correct? Because I thought I remembered you being at the
Yeah.
beginning like 270, 275, and just like, this
Yep.
guy's strong as shit.
Yeah, I wish I could have a picture to show. I mean, probably could find one, but so like I've always been. I don't think I've weighed this body weight since probably like sophomore year of high school. To be honest, like I've always been 275 or above. I got hired at 275, and I just did crash dieting and nothing but cardio before the academy, and I was in the academy at 255. I remember that like it's in my head. But yeah, so powerlifting. So that was probably 2016 to like 2019 or 2018. I got up to 295. Like I was just a big ball. I'm 6 foot, so I mean that kind of helps a little bit. But I trained. My training partner was a machine, and he was working on his PhD at the local college. So he was like not knocking the guy's sedentary lifestyle compared to what I had. So I was just, and he had experience in powerlifting. So I'm following his path. I'm eating what he's eating. Full pizzas twice a week, just trying to put on mass because mass moves mass, right?
Yeah.
And so I
Uh,
think
it's true, but I hate that expression. I feel like
I
people
know,
use
I know.
that
I'm sorry. They
just to
do, yeah.
whatever. And like,
Yep.
I remember, in coaching football, people would say that, and you're like, that's not necessarily true because
Yeah.
if you're just getting fat and you're not getting
Yep.
stronger, you're not moving more mass. You're making it harder for yourself to move.
Right. Yeah.
There was something you mentioned earlier about like how good you feel, and like you don't not really. You said you're 235, not really paying that close attention to it. I wish that's something that more people would do. So many
Yeah.
people get so caught up on a number on the scale as
Yeah.
opposed to looking at what is their overall performance. But they'll just get so caught up. Oh, I got to be 216. Why does it matter if you're running better than you've ever ran before? Your numbers are better than they've been. Like, who cares if you lose 2 more pounds at that point? Is that truly going to make your performance better? It might not. It could. But like, I wish people would more so look at their overall performance, whether that's in athletics or in your situation, real life situations for work, like looking at your overall job performance as opposed to getting so caught up on, hey, I have to be at this weight.
Yeah. And I get it for like my buddies that compete in bodybuilding, like they have
Yeah,
to cut, right? And powerlifting
absolutely.
and even strongman, there's times like I don't ever cut weight because I'm not like a professional strongman. I'm an amateur. But I think that's really the only time I ever focused on the number was like cutting weight for competitions. But I just think like I'll step on the scale. I'm not going to lie. But to me, it's just I have body physique goals, right? I always joke around. I want go muscle, not show muscle. But it's not bad to have some show muscle too, right? But yeah, I do wish people wouldn't so focus heavily on the scale because you like there's times where I feel like I'm looking more lean, but the number's the same, and I'll get in my head for a second when I'm on that scale and going, dang man, like I swear I'm leaner, and I'm just like, you are, like who cares? Like don't look at that number. Some
Yeah,
people get so ingrained on that they're weighing themselves like every day, and and they're just kicking themselves in the butt that they're not losing weight when they probably are.
Yeah, they're probably losing fat, but if they're
Yeah.
increasing their skeletal muscle mass, but maybe they're not necessarily seeing that on the scale, it's easy for somebody who doesn't know that to get frustrated, but their body composition is improving.
Yeah, yeah. I would love to do like, was it the DEXA scans? I think I'd love to
Yeah,
see where I'm
you
at.
have like DEXA, embodies, all. There's multiple you could
Yeah.
do.
I hold all my weight in my love handles and stomach, so that's my goal right now. But yeah, I'd love to go. I probably should do a DEXA scan and then see the difference. I should have done it, you know, 3 years ago when I first started training with Modern Athlete. But yeah,
Yeah, I haven't done the DEXA. I've done the embody a fair amount. It's interesting. Obviously, all these tests are going to have some error in them.
hmm
But to me, it's important that we stay on whatever we're measuring ourselves off of at that time, that we stay consistent with that test as opposed to just bouncing around on multiple different tests. And then for anybody who's listening now, we want to make sure that if I'm doing a test at 7 a.m., that I continue to track my progress at 7 a.m. on days that I'm doing it. And if you're going to do something like an embody at DEXA, you don't need to be doing that weekly. You know, once a month is plenty at that point, because if we sit there trying to do it weekly or twice a week, you're going to get very frustrated with that progress. But that's kind of a little bit off topic right there, just for
yeah,
anybody
no,
who's
but yeah,
not familiar with those.
the
So
only thing we ever do is those every year at our work physical, hold the little hand palm thing out, and
yeah,
then it tells your numbers, which I think those are the least. I don't know. I'm not a dietitian and nutrition. They're just, I don't think they're that accurate, but that's all we get. So
yeah, I mean, it's definitely not going to be that accurate, but at least if you're doing that and that's what you're doing each time,
you can see the
you should
progress.
be able to see which direction you're going.
Right. It kind of ties into like training, right? We'll see guys comment on Train Heroic, like, is it okay if I use this barbell versus this? And that this kind of reminded me of that because, like, I'll tell them if you're going to use a hex bar for deadlifts, make sure you use it the whole cycle. That's how you'll kind of capture your progress too, right? Or if you're going to use a Mars bar or a safety squat bar, as long as you use that same, implement, then that's how you can kind of track your progress. Unless it's just like a one-off thing, like you're out of state for that week or something, but kind of the same philosophy, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And there could be situations like you don't need to be just bouncing around each week just to try a new bar just for the hell of it. But if I had somebody come to me who was like, "Hey, I had this happen. My low back's pretty tight. We have
Yep.
straight bar deadlift. I might do an elevated trap bar with them that day to alleviate some of the stress on that low back. But that is for a specific reason. It's not just like let's do this today just for the hell of it.
Yeah.
So if it
Right.
is being
Right.
changed, it needs to be changed for a specific reason. Like in my training block right now on Fridays, my second strength movement is an RDL. My left hamstrings have been pretty tight over the past couple weeks. So last week, just take some of that stress off the RDL. I did a barbell hip up so that way I wasn't loading those hamstrings directly in that RDL. Hit a little bit more of the glutes. So I'm still getting that strength work in there. But that is done with a specific intent. It's not just
Yep.
for fun. And
Yep.
we talked a little earlier on it when we were talking about program hopping, but that's where, people program hop just for it to be fun and they want to try something different and they don't see the results because they're not patient. Good training is boring a lot of times.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and it's can be frustrating online because people want to like go do something different just because, they didn't want to do the same exercises in a block. Like I'm finishing up a 4 week block right now. The only thing different I changed in my program or in the program during this block was the number of sets. So everything stayed the same. It was me increasing volume each week by sets. And then when I go to my next 4 week block, that's where I'll still keep all my core movements the same. I'll decrease number of reps in the set. But then where I'll see the biggest change is the next 4 weeks, my auxiliary patterns, I will change that out. But it's still going
Yeah.
to be very similar. And that's
It's kind of like when I get like new people, new firefighters are like, man, how do I, like, no background of lifting at all, like zero. And they're like, hey, how do I start working out or like develop strength? And I always say, hey, I've referred them to here, but sometimes they're like, oh, it looks too intimidating. And so I'm like, hey, you got 5-3-1. There's boring but big. Like all those are just boring, the same thing every day, but you're going to see progress from it. And I tell them like you just said, do not jump off it because you're getting bored. Like follow it through and see how you feel. And I guarantee you'll develop progress. And that's where the biggest thing is with staying on something is you're going to see progress versus, hey, I'm going to do 4 weeks on this and then I'm going to jump over here for 6 weeks and I don't like that. Or like, I can't tell you how much money I've spent on Train Heroic on random programs just because I was hopping all the time and my buddy would be doing something and I'm like, man, that sounds fun. Let me try it. And I'm like, I don't like it. I'm go like, I
Yeah.
probably spent hundreds of dollars, if not thousands, on programs in the last 10 years I've been on the job, or yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talk about training for the job, and you referenced it earlier on why training is important for you with your family. Could you talk a little bit about day to day at your job, why it's important for you to train and to train consistently?
Yeah. So, I mean, to be realistic, I think 85 or 90% of our calls are EMS, medical related, right? Like I say very rarely do we fight fire like you might see on TV or online. But like for us, it's just being ready for anything, right? Like we could be, eating dinner we call it as a family, right? The station, and then the tones go off and it's a working house fire that you're going from 0 to 60. You got to think clearly and be able to perform, right? Like for me now as a supervisor, it's important to know that my backseat guys, my firefighters can do the job. And my crews they're studs. I have no question about it. So to pull up to a house, they just jump out. Doors are open before the air brake hits. Like that's jokingly, but that's how fast it feels. And hoses are getting pulled and just being able to be conditioned for that, right? Like our day to day might be lifting 80-year-old, grandma off the ground or a seizure or Narcan. But I mean, realistically, if you want to think about injury prevention, training like this, like we're carrying our EMS boxes 85 or 90% of the time. They're no less than 50 pounds each. I swear, I don't know. I've never weighed them. So we're carrying those awkward lifts, getting up and down the truck, climbing up and down things, picking people up, carrying them downstairs. Like all these things might seem kind of minute to people. And it's not the hero stuff that you want to see on TV, but doing these things, unilateral movements, deadlifts, squats, like swing, like all this explosive stuff, it carries over because now when I have to lift, a bariatric person that's 500 pounds with my crew and the ambulance, like I'm confident that I'm gonna be okay. There's multiple people on departments, probably nationwide, that are on light duty all the time because they don't lift and they don't, do anything to protect themselves in the job. And I can tell you there's guys on my department that probably knock on me for training like I do. And oh, why do you lift heavy deadlift? Like you're going to hurt your back. Like that's the number one thing we all hear is like, you're going to hurt your back. You're deadlifting too much. But I'm knock on wood. I've been okay, right? Like I think deadlifting like we do is what prevents me from getting injured. And the goal of the job is to stay on the truck, right? Like nobody wants to spend 40-hour work week, a 9 to 5 in light duty looking at papers. Like we want to work on the truck because we hang with our buddies. We get to do fun things. We get to train. So kind of in a roundabout way to answer your question, like the day to day is EMS stuff. Like we don't fight a lot of fire, but being able to lift the medical boxes and lift people up and get in weird spots. And then kind of like, I even forgot, like I'm on a TRT truck. So technical rescue. So we're hiking mountains with gear on our back and we're rappelling and we're doing stuff like this. So to be in shape to do that stuff, like, I had a really good chief that I look up to. He's like, when a crew pulls up to a fire and I know they can work, I'm assigning them multiple tasks. Or if a crew pulls up that I don't ever see train and I don't ever see work out, they're going to get the things that aren't so cool. Like they're going to get, hey, you're just going to stage there if we need you. Or, hey, you can just stand in the front yard and watch. Like there's chiefs that do that just because of how hard we work. So like that's kind of I know I'm going off on tangents, but that's like why I train and how it applies like every day for us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is frustrating being in the field and then you hear somebody who has absolutely no idea about the human body who makes the comment about like, oh, you shouldn't deadlift, you're going to hurt your back. Well, if you're going to go pick up somebody who can't move and you have to get into a bad position to pick them up, I'd much rather be strong trying to pick
Mm-hmm.
somebody up in a bad
Yep.
position than being weak and then having to try and pick up this, individual who's probably severely overweight or like maybe they're severely overweight. And now I end up hurting myself because I haven't trained anything similar to that. or I'm just so weak that I hurt myself. And then now
Yep.
you've ultimately let down everybody else you're working with because your inability to train yourself is putting more stress on the rest of that team.
Yeah, nobody like all the lift assists. It's not like wide open in the middle of the living room. It's like on the bed between the bed and the wall, or in the between the toilet and the bathtub. Like even if they're a 70 pound, 90-year-old lady, like you're still going to be in awkward positions, and you're going to have to twist and bend that they tell you not to. Right? You're like you can't lift with your legs. You're doing your best, but you just have to get them up. And so I think having the posterior from this training prevents me from those injuries. And like I mean, there's guys that have been on light duty for 3/4 of my career with bad backs, and they've never lifted, and they've before that they never, you know what I mean? So it does drive me nuts that people say that, and it's lessened now. Like the culture is shifting, at least in my department. A lot of younger guys, a lot of guys love to train. A few of them train with me here that are studs too. And it's like that's good to me. A lot of the guys that have retired are the ones that used to bag on us behind our backs that like we're out there squatting, or deadlifting, or why are we in gear again for the second time this week? Like it does get frustrating, but I've learned to just kind of let it roll off my back and do what I do so I can be successful and my crew can too.
Yeah. And I think it's so important for you too that you're not leading by example. So I say that
Mhm.
oftentimes, within the military, and I think it's very cool that you see some of these guys who are older now who realize mistakes that they made when they were younger, who are trying to inform some of those younger soldiers as far as like, hey, I didn't do this. This is really what you need to do to protect that longevity in your career. I wish this information was out when I was your age, and to see them passing it down, it doesn't always click with some of those younger guys. I wish it would, but it is like you do see it work a lot of times with them. And I think it's awesome that some of those older guys are passing that down to those younger guys.
Yeah, and like how I got into I don't like the term, but the tactical environment, right? The tactical training programs was from he's a chief now, but he was a captain, and I would rove like to his truck. So when you're a rover, you just look at the schedule that day and go, okay, I'm on this truck today and there tomorrow. But I'd go to his truck quite a bit because I was the second paramedic, and he would do these programs, or we'd go train. I'm like, dude, this guy's for being, he's not old, like he's only 50 now, but even back then, like in his mid 40s, but outworking me and everyone else, like I wanted to be like that. And so that's kind of another way that I got here. And you see it too. Like when you were saying like leading by example, I immediately started thinking of specific crews where like the captain's doesn't train. And so what do the guys do? And they might even be younger than me. They're just in front of the TV all day or running their mouth, that we're out there training and they're not type thing. Or why are they out of service again at the training center when, it's kind of crazy that you said that. And I thought of it too, like my back seat, my whole truck really, they don't, if I'm like, hey, let's go to the training center, we're going to work on, you know, pulling hoses or whatever. But we always start with the skills course, which is what you're in full gear on air. And, some guys call it an obstacle course, but you walk around and you pull tires, swing sledges, climb stairs, carry hose in gear. They don't hesitate. Like, I'm like, let's do it. And then we'll go down and I'm like, hey, you want to try this one? Like, it's called Zombie Land. And they're like, what is it? And I'll tell them and they're like, sounds terrible, but I'm in. Like, and I think it is because, as a supervisor, you do have to lead by example and they're just going to do what I'm down for. Otherwise I could just show up, check the truck off and feed up in the recliner, which is all too common in the fire service, unfortunately. And then now that crew's a liability. Like you can kind of see it with these conversation, it ties back to being a liability and just a risk for the citizens and themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two things I took that I want to touch on in there. I love that you guys are doing like a skill specific event before like actually getting into your training. I think so many people, whether it's in a tactical setting, athletics, they try to do so much skill specific training and they'll try to do these just like funky movements like, oh, that's replicating what I'm going to do in the sport. It's replicating what I'm going to do in the job. And they just do a movement that's really not needed. So like the vast majority of people just need to master the basic movements. But it is important that you are practicing that skill. And I like that that you guys are separating those two, not giving some wonky exercise in your actual training session. And then the other part of that I really liked is we talk about leading by example. it absolutely drives me crazy when you see leaders tell their guys to go do something, especially if
Yep.
it's, you know, I look at it when I saw when I was a younger strength coach, seeing some of the older strength coaches who have been there, maybe they grinded through powerlifting for years and they have some of those injuries. Like, I get that they're probably not doing what a 24-year-old strength coach might be doing, but it absolutely drives me crazy when you have a leader who should be able to do everything his guys do, but then just doesn't do it out of laziness and then goes and tells his or her guys to go do that. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. And I don't understand as a leader how somebody expects to, gain respect in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I thought of high school coaches and other people that I've been around, and the people that tell you to do something like, hey, go do this, and then they're gonna watch you. Like, it does make you kind of like, you look back at this guy's, he can't even do this. But then
Piece of
there's
shit.
people that I work with that are like, that I've trained with or like at work, and they're doing what I'm doing, and it just makes you motivated. And that's another thing too, is like, we're competitive, right? I think the fire service kind of gravitates towards, I don't say alpha, but like guys that we're competitive, right? Most guys are collegiate athletes or military. So it does come down to that too, where you're like, hey, let's go down and do this and this skills course, and we're going to change it up today. And you start looking back on, okay, their bell's ringing, mine's not yet. And I'm, heavier and older than them, like that. Just you're in your head, and it helps you too. But I think leading by example, all the captains that I worked underneath, that's how they were. You know what I mean? So, and I think that ingrained it in me. I know when I was taking the promotional process, I'm like, I'm not going to change who I am. A lot of guys do because now they're a supervisor. It's like, I'm going to joke around with my guys and be one of them, but then I know I need to be their boss at the same time, which is very rare. Um, but also getting down in the trenches with them. We love manual labor. That's part of the fire service. That was the hardest thing. Being a supervisor, I'm not pulling hose anymore. I'm not pulling ceiling. I'm not forcing doors, but I'm right there with them. And I'll get down and dirty when I'm allowed to, and probably shouldn't. But give me that tool. Let me check for extension and stuff. But yeah, I think just leading by example, and then kind of tying in the first part of it, like going down and doing skills courses before the actual training. Like we do the same skills course, really. I mean, it's the same event. It's the same one we'll do with our cadets. So like guys and girls that are trying to get hired by fire department, they volunteer for us, and we give back to them by, you know, show them the ropes. They get to train with us in gear. But it's kind of funny too, because the minute you change up the events in rotation, like if you go backwards, it just destroys people because they get so acclimated, I think, and they go, okay, we're going to start with the tire drag. I know I can sandbag and save it for the stairs, but the minute you switch it on them, and I don't really know where I'm going with this, but I think you were just telling me about the skills, but they do replicate or they're supposed to replicate tasks on the fire ground, right? Like pulling a tire is like pulling the 4 or 5 inch supply line off a truck. A sledge is like forcing a door. We have many high rises in the city that I work for. So climbing stairs with hose packs and tools is realistic, right? Like I've been on a high rise fire. It was only on the 10th floor, but and it was during while I've been doing this training, and it was kind of cool that we were the second crew going up, and we ended up taking the hose or the nozzle because the first crew got smoked. They weren't in shape, and you start seeing that progress where we have like 12 guys climbing the stairs to do the fire attack, and they just start falling back, and guys are falling back, and you're like, well, I'm gonna pass you, give me the nozzle, and we're gonna go work, and you can't, like, and that's a huge proponent too of why I've been doing this program, just to have the balance.
Yeah, and I'm sure you probably share a similar mindset on regardless of how tired you are. Probably just like somebody probably have to kill you to actually beat you on it. Like
Yeah,
I remember
yeah,
doing an event and somebody said something to me at the end. They were like, how are you doing this so easily? And for one, the event truly wasn't that hard. But I just remember thinking in my head, I was like, I'm a little tired. And I straight up told the guy, I was like, honestly, I would just never show you if I was tired. Like
yeah,
I would have to be truly dying for me to like show that I was tired. And that was one of the first guys I ever worked for. He was phenomenal as far as, building leadership and being out there doing it, even with our players. Like if something happened, like he'd go run with the players and we were running at 5 a.m. to go get people. And, that was one of the things that he taught in me early on was like one of the biggest things with football was, hey, hands were never on your hips. So
Yeah.
if you're in conditioning, hands were never on your hips because if you think about the actual game, if you look over and see somebody hands on their hips, like head cocked back, you're like, this dude's tired. We're about to attack him.
Yep.
Like this
Yep.
cornerback, what are you gonna do? You see that? Hey, well, let's throw a deep ball on him because he's obviously fatigued. So never allowing somebody to see that you are fatigued, I think is, I imagine you had that mental aspect with you as well on that.
Yeah. And I mean, don't get me wrong. There's days where like you're tired
Yes.
and
Yeah.
you want to quit because you're like, this is terrible, but you can't. But I probably grew up in the same background. Like, was kind of told, like, never put your hands on your hips, never bend over, don't take a knee, like, walk up straight as hard as it is, just do it, right? Like, and we call it like the fear look, like with your SCBA mask, right? All you can see is the eyes. I can look at a guy and I can see that death stare, and I'm like, he's done. Like he's out. Like there's no way he's going to be beneficial to me. You see it with new guys. They probably saw it in me when I first started, right? Because I had no idea. I had never been in gear, so you do see it to new people, and then eventually you work that out of yourself, right? And you always hear that quote, like your mind gives out before your body does. Like, and that pertains to the fire service, the mental toughness you have, because the minute you put your stuff on and your mask, now you're claustrophobic, and you're hot. You immediately, it could be for us in Arizona, 50 to 40 degrees is cold, but your heart rate's still fast because you're wearing this thick stuff. And so there's times you're like doing either training or on a fire, and you're like, man, I'm tired, but I can't show it. I'm not going to just stand right here now and bend over, because we see those guys. And like you said, we're not attacking them like sports, but
Not in football. Yeah.
you see them and you're like, well, if this guy's on my crew, like I have to pick up the slack and my other firefighter has to pick up the slack. And
Well,
that's the biggest
especially
thing.
in your position as a leader, if you're starting to complain that you're tired or you're showing you're tired,
Yep.
I feel like that puts it down the line that, okay, it's okay for me to complain about being tired. It's okay for me to say that I'm tired. No, get this shit done.
Yep. 100%. Like, I think, I could think of when I was roving and I'd go with crews and we train, and the captain's like quits right away. And you're like, well, he can't. It does get in your head. You're like, well, he's not going to give me shit because he quit before me if I stop. But, I don't want that. And that's why I do my best to do what I do, so that way I can keep up with my crew. And like I said, all my guys are studs, and it's like I have to. Otherwise, they're going to outwork me, and I don't want that. We always say the faster your bottle rings, then the less conditioned you are, right? Naturally, being bigger, you're going to breathe in more air. Like, at least what I've been told by like our doctor at our physical, like you just have more muscle mass that needs the oxygen. So it is true. I don't know. I don't know if they just tell me
Yeah,
that to
so
make me
more muscle mass, you'd have to unload more oxygen
right.
unload more oxygen off at the muscles. So obviously, you're having to work harder there.
And I'm studying this stuff for my TSAC, but just in general, it's like I'd be the first guy to ring. Which, when I say ring, most SCBA bottles, they have a bell. Ours is a bell. Some are like a vibration, and that lets you know that like you have a third. I'm probably gonna get someone's gonna comment like this guy doesn't even know a third. Like ours is a third of your air left, um, and you're technically
No
supposed to be
one's
out of
counting the
the.
jets. You're good on that.
Okay. I mean, I'm on the spot, but we just were told if you're ringing inside the fire, you need to be out, right? Realistically, does that happen? No, because I can look back and see the front door. But you don't want to be that first guy to ring, because then your whole crew has to leave, right? There's an accountability thing in the fire service. If I was the first one to ring and I'm like, shit, this sucks. Now my whole crew has to leave because of me. And we love doing what we do, right? Like we love being in the fire. That's why we do this job. And now I'm taking that away from them, and potentially I'm jeopardizing this person's house because we have to get out, right? That's kind of the supervisor, and he starts thinking of. So to be able to be that guy that I don't ring first, I mean, I do on my crew because I think I'm the biggest. That's my excuse, but uh, it's being able to perform, right? Like I keep saying that, but it's beneficial to be able to perform in your turnouts and gear. Like, we're not in them very often for real calls, but when you are, like, I'd rather be ready all the time than not ready, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, awesome. So we kind of touched on a little bit earlier when we talked about programming hopping and your time with modern athletes, some of those changes. But what have you seen directly, like day to day at your job? that training with Modern Athlete has done for you compared to previous programs?
I think it just made it easier. Like I kind of mentioned the types of calls that we run, but I think just being able to everything's easier like physically. And then it sounds cheesy, but confidence booster, right? Like being able to feel better, look better, and knowing like if you throw anything at me, I'll be pretty confident I could be successful at it, right? Whether it's, a medical call, a fire, an extrication, or a mountain rescue or whatever. Like I'm not the guy in the trenches because I'm a captain now, but I think just doing this program has made me feel better at everything at work and just builds that confidence to where I know like throw anything at me, man. I'll take it. Like it sounds cliche, but that's kind of how it is.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I think there's definitely those programs. And I think, especially with Warfighter, and it's built into such a community that's
Hmm.
it's very cool to see with the number of athletes training on Warfighter and the conversations that happen on Train Heroic. Like it is a very tight knit community in that team.
Yeah.
But I think when you have others going through that hard work as that others going through that hard work like you are, it does kind of build that like there's a lot of pride in it, I believe.
Yeah, no, and I think that was the biggest eye opener for me when I became like an assistant coach with Modern Athlete and having that access to like the statistics on Train Heroic to see. I didn't realize there was that many people subscribed and from doing Warfighter. Like it was awesome to see. And then I get the notifications every time someone joins. It's like this is badass, man. Like it is tight knit. Like the chats are pretty active on Train Heroic. The comments on you know, you can either comment on the training block or session of the day, or you can do the chat. Like it's cool to see. People probably think I'm crazy because like I have notifications on my phone, and the minute I get one, I'll look at it. And if someone has a question, I'm like, let me answer that for this guy because they might be mid session or like I think we all just support each other. And the leaderboard is cool because people I think use that in a way to like say, okay, I know I do. I'll look at it and go, I got to see what these guys are doing because and that pushes me to be, not to spit. That pushes me to perform better too because I'm like, there's some dudes they're up there with me, and I'm like, all right, I got to bust my ass and on this lift or like, hey, we got to go run this 5 mile that last. I literally when we just ran 5 miles, I saw a guy put like 43 minutes, and I was like. I didn't think I was aiming for 50 minutes, like truthfully. And as I'm approaching the end of it, I'm like at 41 minutes, I'm like, I need to turn it up as fast as I could. And I didn't beat his time, but I mean, that's kind of the community of it, right? Like we're competitive. We're
Yeah,
there to help each
it's
other.
breeding competition.
Right. Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't have that as you get older because you're not in competitive sports anymore. Right. Like I think a lot of guys do jujitsu still. I tried it, it was cool, but it just wasn't for me. But other than that, I don't feel like a lot of guys do really anything competitive. So to be a part of this, that helps you. But I think the biggest thing is like fall on each other for questions. I've learned a ton from chat groups, right? Like things from people and do this as a substitute for that movement or like just questions in general. Like it's cool to see guys think outside the box too. Like, hey man, I can't, run today. Can I swim? And you're like, shit, I never thought of that. Yeah, swimming's that's tiring as well. Like do what you got to do to be complete the programming and stuff. But I think it's just a tight knit community, which is one of the biggest things I think is beneficial for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about that competition because if you're somebody who doesn't necessarily have a training partner, being competitive could be difficult for
Yep.
some individuals. But then, if we, like I said, in that community on there, you're seeing the leaderboard, you're seeing everything else, that could be a way to help somebody drive that competition for themselves. Like you said, you push yourself to the end of that. I believe you said 5 miles, correct?
Yep.
All because you want to make sure you're up there on that leaderboard. And
Right.
then a byproduct of that, if we're trying to truly compete, is holding us to that accountability too. Because if we're not going to sit there and do 2 sessions a week and then expect, unless you just have some freak genetics, but you're not going to go do 2 sessions a week and then expect to be up there on those leaderboards. So if you truly want to be on those leaderboards, you have to be accountable that we are hitting all these sessions and doing the sessions to that proper intent.
Yeah, for me, it's like I have a garage gym, so I'm by myself 90% of the time I lift. My wife trains, we'll train together sometimes, but usually we're staggered because one of us is getting the kids or taking the kids to school or something's going on. But being alone in a garage gym, it's very easy for someone to slack and be like, "Ah, I'm going to skip that or do this." But having the community that motivates you and the leaderboard. Like for me lately, the conditioning leaderboards have been what have been pushing me. I'm like, I know I'm not going to have these 5, 6 minute miles like some of these guys are riding, but I mean, I'm going to try my best to get as fast as I can. And um,
Well,
I
they
think
probably
that's
don't have your
cool.
squad either.
Well, true, but still, I mean, it's competitive, and I think being in a garage gym, that's why I love, having the Train Heroic platform with Modern Athlete because we can talk to each other and, um, you know, do all that. I think one thing I think would be cool to see is people posting more videos of their lifts on chats. I know some people might not care for that, but it's cool to see that too because you can see people actually performing, right? Like it's on Instagram, social media and stuff, but you can post videos on the chat, and I think that'd be cool to start seeing too. I'm not sure if that's something we would want, but it would just help the garage.
We could also do it too in our school community, to where we've
True. Yeah.
grown modern athlete school community. Like that's grown pretty good over. I believe we started
Yeah.
that maybe 6 months ago. We
Yeah.
have
And that's
tons of
another,
follow on there where people are able to post videos and keep also have another way of active
yeah.
engagement with the team and others in the community.
That's a great resource too because of all the free. I mean, you're paying for the program, but all the additional resources in the classroom that you guys post, like something as like a pull-up progression, or I think there's stairs and just how to write your own program. Like you don't see that from many companies because like you don't want someone. Some people are like, I don't want them to write their own program and leave, right? But there's so many resources on school that the Modern Athlete provides too. Um, I don't know if a lot of people don't see it on there, and then there's even chats, like an open chat on there too to ask questions. But there's a lot of resources on school where you can learn a lot of stuff about why you guys write like you do. And, hey, it works as people are like, hey, how do I get better at pull ups? Well, hey, look, here's a pull up progression you can reference free on school, and have access to other stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Brandon, this has been great conversation. I'm going to give you the closing words if there's anything you want to leave everybody with tonight.
Oh, putting me on the spot. I don't
Yeah,
know.
on the spot. Let's see what you got.
Uh, I'm biased, obviously, but I think Warfighter is one of the best programs that's out there for anybody that's a first responder, military, or just you want to be general, well-rounded person in strength and conditioning. Um, I'm not going anywhere. I can't wait to work closer with you guys after I get some certifications completed. Um, and it's been great to be a part of this live and hopefully answer some questions and seeing the ends of fire service that some people don't really know about. Yeah, man, I thank you for having me, and hopefully I was able to answer some of your questions correctly and not go off on crazy tangents.
No, I don't think there's any tangents. No, I think it's been a great conversation, Brandon. Appreciate you getting on here tonight with me. For
Hmm.
anybody who is interested in training further with us, make sure to go to our Instagram at Modern Athlete Strength and DM us train in the comment in the inbox. I guess I can't speak now after putting you on. So yeah, DM us train and we will get back to you on getting you with the proper training program. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.